In this video, I'm living la dolce vita and driving around the English countryside in this sporty Italian number. It's a 1978 Lancia Beta Coupe in this sumptuous shade of brown, which I believe is called marrone metallizzato, or chestnut metallic if you voted leave. If you're a regular watcher of Grand Theft Auto, you may have noticed that I'm a sucker for a nice metallic brown or beige, and this is definitely one to suck on or something. The Lancia Beta is 50 years old this year, which is pretty hard to believe. This one certainly doesn't drive like something that's been knocking around for half a century. It feels very solid and together. It doesn't rattle or squeak, and it goes and stops and steers like a youngster. I know because it belongs to a friend of mine that it's been well looked after, and I know the mechanic he uses to do the looking after as well, and he's a sound chap. This particular car has the 1600cc version of the lovely Lampredi twin-cam engine. I really like how that catch automatically latches as you open the bonnet. That's a nice touch. This twin-cam featured in a whole bunch of Fiats and Lancias, from the 124 to the Delta Integrale and Thema Turbo, and even the Lancia Kappa up in the late 90s. Power output of this early version of the 1600 is 108 brake horse at a fairly high 6,000 RPM. It does like to rev, and it makes quite a pleasing noise as it does so, although it doesn't have the popping and snortling of something like, say, an Alfa Sud 1.5 Sprint. It also runs to a decent 100 pound-foot of torque at a quite usable 4,500 RPM, which helps with its general flexibility so you aren't caning it all the time. Unless you want to, which you probably will. It's geared quite low. It's a 5-speed box, but the lower ratios feel quite low, so it's geared for acceleration. But it's super smooth and it revs really smoothly and evenly, so you can really use that power. Lancia represents for me a really winning combination of style, elegance, sporting capability in the sense of being rewarding to drive rather than necessarily out and out the fastest. Of course, Lancia had plenty of sporting success, but as road cars, they're more about style and sophistication than they are about being boy racers. The engine is mounted quite low and canted back about 20 degrees in the front engine versions, which keeps the understeer under control and improves the weight distribution. The chassis is really nicely balanced. It turns in keenly and just flows along sweetly, like writing with a really good pen. The unassisted steering is perhaps a touch heavy for parking, but spot on for regular driving, with just enough weight and plenty of feeling for where the wheels are pointing. The weight distribution is about 62% fore and 38% aft. People tend to think that 50-50 is perfect, but that's not necessarily true, especially for a front-wheel drive car, where the pointy end has to do the steering and the traction, so the front wheels are glad of a bit of engine weight to press them down on the tarmac. In the Beta Coupe, they grip admirably. Apparently the back end will edge outwards if you lift off mid-corner while going very quickly, helpfully trimming your line through the bend. But only a muppet or a hardcore motoring journalist would drive like that, and certainly I didn't, because it's not my car, and it's not my hedge either. The feedback from the road surface is pretty direct, but this is a very rough surface here, and it's not uncomfortable, it's not jiggly at all, it's not upsetting the composure of the car or of my dental work. The steering's surprisingly light, actually. Light in the sense that the wheel is very easy to turn, but not light in that it doesn't feel over-assisted or anything. It feels actually very well planted. The brakes are pretty good, being discs all round with plenty of stopping power. They're dual circuit and servo assisted, which wasn't necessarily a given in the early 70s. Actually, they're servo assisted on all Betas apart from the later Monte Carlos. Early Monte Carlos had problems with the wheels tending to lock up and skid when you braked hard, to the extent that Lancia took it off the market for a spell. They must have done a lot of head scratching trying and failing to invent anti-lock brakes, because it took them 2 years before they reintroduced the Monte Carlo with the simple expedient of leaving off the brake servo. In fact, Dunlop had already invented anti-lock brakes with their Maxaret system, used first on aircraft and then on the Jensen FF of 1966, but that's a whole other story. Let's not go there now. The Beta Coupe and HP were styled inside Lancia by Aldo Castagno, helped by old Lancia hand Piero Castagnero, who had designed its pretty Fulvia predecessor. To my eyes, it's handsome rather than beautiful. It follows in a Lancia tradition of being characterful with elegant detailing rather than having a traffic-stoppingly gorgeous silhouette. From some angles it's even, perhaps, dare I say it, a tiny bit portly. But before you cancel me for fat shaming, I will quickly add that I very much like it, and would also 100% respect it in the morning. I can't help wondering though if the extra length of the HPE version, which uses the longer floor pan of the Berliner Saloon, doesn't make for a sleeker overall shape. But it's a matter of taste. They're all good-looking cars. The overall cabin ambiance, or rather ambiente, is pretty good. There's a decent amount of space, and there's some nice materials. Lots of really 70s Italian detailing here. Beautifully crafted ashtray and these pull switches have a really nice feel to them. That's a real Lancia thing, is the detailing and the elegant styling of the little details. It's really appealing in it's not even a 1970s way, it's just a kind of classic Italian flair sort of way. The dashboard is probably not the Beta Coupe's greatest feature. It's not bad or anything, it's just I guess it's a bit of its time. It follows a distinctly early 1970s design ethic, filled with the optimism of better living through chemistry, as expressed through a funky, chunky hunk of brown plastic. The later ones were a bit neater, but they were still a bit under-special, really. Tidy, lots of gauges, but just not the car's best feature. I think these seats have been reupholstered, but really nicely so. I think that's leather, feels like it. It's super comfortable, it's very cosy, but not cramped. It feels more grown up than a sort of out and out sports car. And I guess that's Lancia's positioning. Speaking of dashboards, in my last video about the Lancia Beta, I got taken to task in the comments quite rightly for having left out the fabulous dashboard that featured in the Trevi and also the last versions of the Berliner Saloon. So, not relevant to the coupe, but here it is anyway. It was designed by the architect Mario Bellini and is truly something. I'll let you make your own mind up as to what exactly that something is. Let us know in the comments. Some purists say that the Beta isn't a thoroughbred Lancia, as if some hot-blooded Fiat had jumped over the fence one night and had its wicked way. It's true that it was the first model developed after Gianni Agnelli bought the heavily loss-making business in 1969, and that the engine block came from literally the other side of the tracks. But the engine development and the engineering and all the design work on the coupe and the HPE was done in-house by the Lancia team, and it doesn't share any major Fiat parts that I know of, and certainly not the fundamental engineering. If you're fancying a stylish and highly entertaining classic car, and you're looking for a good excuse not to give people a lift in the back too often, and you don't want to spend stupid amounts of money, then I can thoroughly recommend a Lancia Beta. In fact, I can specifically recommend this actual car because a friend of mine who owns it is reluctantly considering selling it. Not because he doesn't like it, not because it's not a good one, but because, like me, he's got too many cars and something's got to give. It's only done about 52,000 miles, it's lived a lot of its life in the Isle of Man, it's bodily very good and mechanically excellent. So if that sounds like it might be up your street and you want to make a sensible offer, then drop me a message in the comments and I'll put you in touch. This will also help me out because it'll save me thinking about how much I would really quite like to have it. But I think I'm going to save myself for an HPE, and in any case I already have one Lancia of my own, a Gamma Coupe, that doesn't currently work and needs to be made to work because I really want to be driving around in that. But that's a story for another video, so if you haven't subscribed already, please do, and then you can catch up with that when I finally get around to doing something about it. Time for a pub lunch.